Hey everyone, and welcome to the next part in my Ghosts of Ghostbusters Explained series. Today, we are going to be looking at the Ghosts of Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of this movie. While I do think that parts of it were fun, and a few of the jokes did make me laugh, as a huge Ghostbusters nerd, I just can't love it. This movie decides to change the rules of a lot of things, while also decanonizing the video games and the comics. Like, for example, them crossing the streams without any hesitation, or making Ivo Shandor go from being the coolest Ghostbusters villain in the entire franchise to a wimpy servant who gets killed in a split second. Anyway, enough of me ranting, let's get on with the analysis. And before we begin, I'll once again put my explanation of the Ghostbusters CDI system right here. But before we begin, I should start by explaining the classification, description, and identification system, or CDI system. There are 7 classes of ghosts. Class 1s are undeveloped forms and often hard to see or interact with. These include spectral lights and disembodied voices. Class 2s actually have somewhat of a form and can physically manipulate things in our world. These include things like floating bedsheets and ghostly hands. Class 3s and 4s are pretty similar. Class 3s are ghosts with a distinct human form and personality, however, if their pre-death identity is discovered, then they are automatically reassigned to Class 4. Class 5s are ectoplasmic manifestations with a non-human form. This includes the Slimers and other more monstrous ghosts. Class 6s are entities with a physical body. These are often less intelligent and more animalistic compared to other ghosts. And finally, we have Class 7s, which are your gods, demons, and other extremely powerful entities. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's get started with the Ghosts of Ghostbusters Afterlife. The first new ghost we have is Muncher. Like Slimer, he is a Class 5 free-roaming vapor. His origin is completely unknown, however, because of his similarities with Slimer, there's a good chance that his origin could be similar to him as well. If you recall from my first Ghosts of Ghostbusters Explained video, you'll know that Slimer is the result of a failed Shandorian experiment where they wanted to create a hungry spirit that would cripple the American farming industry. So what if Muncher was a failed Shandorian experiment where they tried to create a ghost capable of demolishing entire cities, simply by eating the concrete foundations and steel beam supports that those skyscrapers were built with? But remember, none of that is canon, and that's just me speculating. Anyway, next up we have the Mini-Puffs that attacked Ant-Man in Walmart. These little guys are Class 2 corporeal swarmers. While not outright confirmed, I'm fairly certain that these guys operate similar to the candelabrum crawlers from the video game, in that they are regular marshmallows possessed and controlled by mischievous little ghost world spirits. Now, I know that in the movie, Ray called these guys a manifestation of Gozer, but that just can't be the case. At the point we see them in the movie, Gozer isn't in our world yet and can't interact with anything because the ritual hasn't been completed yet. As to why they all look like Stay Puft, maybe these spirits are paying tribute to Gozer by looking like her most recent Destructor form. Alright, now let's get on with the montage ghosts, starting with the Minor Ghost. So, if my following explanation is correct, then he is a Class 3 corporeal inhabiting ghost. The reason I gave it that classification is because it's been confirmed that he was based off the taxi driver ghost from the first movie. So if the miner's backstory is similar to the taxi driver, then it means he probably died somewhere in this town, probably the diner, and he can only manifest his physical form whenever he's in a place related to his death. Next up is the Bug-Eye Ghost. This cacodemon looking thing is a Class 5 free-roaming ghost. Again, not really any lore about him to talk about. One thing that's cool about him though is that he's based off a ghost from the real Ghostbusters cartoon toy line. The ghost did appear in the show, however he looked noticeably different and his eye did not come out of his socket. Okay, the last montage ghost is the Flaming Phantasm. This thing only appears for a literal second, and I think it could be a Class 5 caustic floater. However, it does kind of remind me of the Class 2 floating swarmers from the video game, like the dead fish flyers or the flying skulls. The person who designed this ghost, Paolo Giandoso, I hope I said that right, said that he was asked to create an entity that would manifest in a fire station to terrify firefighters. So that's its canon backstory as far as I'm concerned. And the last new ghost for this movie is Egon Spangler. He is a Class 4 full-torsoed anchored ghost. I mean, if you watch the movies, you pretty much got his whole story. Scientist turned Ghostbuster who, after the company went out of business, retreated to a farm where he attempted to stop the end of the world at the hands of a returning Gozer. And all of that before dying of a heart attack, I think. It's not very clear. Okay, so that's all of the new entities featured in Ghostbusters Afterlife. However, I did promise in my first video that I would give a re-explanation of Gozer and her terror dogs, so here we go. As for classifications, they are the same as the original, with the terror dogs being Class 7 transdimensional possessors and Gozer being a Class 7 transdimensional deity. But where things change is how they work. For starters, they're all ghosts now. Before, they were just living beings from another dimension with really the only ghost power they had was possession, which the terror dogs had. Now, the reason we know they're ghosts is because they can all be trapped. The only thing that can be contained in traps are ghosts. If it's not a ghost, then it can't be trapped and it must be destroyed. I guess they should have known that in the original, so they could have stopped Gozer without crossing the streams. Anyway, another major difference is that Gozer isn't Stay Puft anymore, and on top of that, seems to have no plans of turning into another Destructor form. So, in the original continuity, Gozer was bound by a one Destructor form per dimension rule, meaning that whenever Gozer wants to come into our dimension, she has to take the form of Stay Puft. That rule is clearly not present in this continuity. One more thing, for some reason in this continuity, Gozer never died. After her defeat in 1984, she was booted from our dimension into the ghost world, and oh my god, I just thought of something. What if the reason she's now considered a ghost and why she's not Stay Puft anymore is because she did die, and what we're seeing in Afterlife is the ghost of Gozer? So if you forgot, in the original timeline, Gozer did die and was only able to come back after Evo Chandra used the mandala to resurrect her. But what if in this timeline, her death just sent her spirit to the ghost world, and since that would make her a different entity entirely, she could get out of the staying Stay Puft forever deal? There is only one thing that messes this theory up. How could the terror dogs escape the ghost world when Gozer, who should be more powerful than them, couldn't? I really don't have a good answer for that, but this headcanon does make the movie a bit better for me. Anyway, I think that will do it for this video. However, this won't be my last Ghosts of Ghostbusters Explained video. There are a lot of ghosts in this franchise that I didn't talk about because either I forgot or I didn't want to. But I'll get to them all eventually, maybe. But of course, as always, thank you for watching. Remember to like it if you liked it, subscribe if you really liked it, and I'll see you next time.